On today's show, I have an interview with Gabe Kittle and Jake Cushnir, a poem by Jennifer Swanton Brown, and this month's poetry announcements. Hello, I'm Erica Goss, and this is Word to Word. Today, my guests are Gabe Kittle and Jake Cushnir. Gabe and Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's wonderful to have you. Gabe Kittle is a Santa Cruz poet and works at the Art Bar in Santa Cruz. He was a student just recently at Emerson College in Boston. Jake Cushnir is a student at UC San Diego with a major in structural engineering and a minor in digital film production. It's very nice to have you here. I first heard about the video that you guys made from Gabe's father, who is Dane Servine, and he's a well-known poet, somebody I've actually read with in the Santa Cruz area. So Dane sent me the video that showed Jake busking on at the subway in Boston, and I loved the video. I thought it was fantastic, and I was so impressed that you two young guys had made this. So I interviewed you for my column called The Third Form, which is available on Connotation Press. And then we spent a day in Santa Cruz just kind of walking around and filming, and I got to see kind of how people react to what you do on the street, and also to the fact that you're filming what he's doing on the street, which was very interesting. And so now I have you here for this conversation. So the first thing I'd like to ask you two about is the subway project, the typewriter, and then also you have also done, before this film, you had done some video poems together. Yes. So why don't you tell us about that?
All right, well, first let's talk about the videos that we made before the short film.
Okay.
So starting right after I graduated high school, we started making sort of music video type videos, but just with poems. Mm-hmm. Those can be found on both of our websites, I believe, jakecushnir.com and gabekittle.weebly.com.
All right, thank you.
And so we went around Santa Cruz filming these videos, and we knew we wanted to do it consistently and keep doing it. So then he came out to visit in Boston.
Yeah, so the subway project you mentioned was sort of an impromptu project. For my spring break, we had different spring breaks. I went out to Boston to visit Gabe and our other friend Colin also. And you know, he just was like, "Oh, I'm going down into the subway station to busk some poems. You can come with me if you want." And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely. I'll bring my camera too while I'm at it." He's like, "Yeah, I guess that's fine." And so I just sort of shot what I saw and put something together, and it turned out, you know, a lot better than I had expected.
And to be more specific, busking poems is for the whole second semester of Emerson College last year, I would take my typewriter and go to the subway station and just type poems and sell them to people for however much money they want to buy them. Also sell self-published poetry books. So he just decided to come along one day and film it, and we didn't really know what was going to happen.
But I definitely saw like a lot of aesthetic in what he was doing, not just the poems itself, but the act, almost as an act of public theater, sitting in a subway station and typing on a typewriter with a sign that says "Poems, donations appreciated."
Can you guys define the ancient art of busking? Tell our audience what that means.
Well, busking is specifically sort of selling your art directly to people on the street. So, like, most people consider it with like musicians or I don't know, magicians or balloon makers or just, you know, random street performers that you would usually think of. And not many people think of selling typewriter poems. That's sort of a new medium, I feel like.
That's true, yeah.
And my good friend Kevin Devaney, who started the Art Bar and Cafe in Santa Cruz, which is where I work, he's the person who told me about typewriter poems. And he supported himself entirely for a year or so, just selling poems on the street. That's amazing. That's basically, with the money he made doing that, that's what started the Art Bar. So people sort of look at busking as they sort of look down on it as you have no other way to make money. You're just sort of working for dollars on the street, right? Except we're trying to give that more of a better name as just taking it within yourself to sell your art directly to people and make a living off of what you do best.
I was thinking when you told me that Kevin had actually started the art bar by busking poetry,
Yeah.
I kept laughing because people always say there's no money in poetry, right? But
Exactly.
he's proved them wrong, at least in this small way. That's all so very interesting. The idea of taking art and directly offering it to the consumer, right?
Yeah.
Without anybody in between, not
Yeah.
even a book.
Yeah.
It's like, here, I will make this thing for
Yeah.
you, this fresh thing spontaneously for you. And Gabe, we actually have the typewriter.
Yes, we do.
Right? This is the famous
The famous
typewriter.
typewriter.
Here
The
it is.
typewriter that's in the video. And this typewriter has a history too, right? It was a gift to you.
Yes, my uncle gave this to me for Christmas one year. Its name is Seymour.
Hello,
I
Seymour.
think someone told me they estimated it was from the 1930s.
I think so.
Yes, it's a Royal typewriter. It has a little inscription on it from Seymour, Indiana. So yeah, I got this from my uncle for Christmas this last year, and basically since I got it, I've only been able to write on a typewriter. Typewriters are pretty addicting in that way.
Yeah. So can you describe, did you know how to type on a typewriter before you got
Well,
it? Is it harder?
Yeah, the thing is,
type on?
it's pretty basic because it's the same concept as a keyboard, except the physical hammers. You have to pound the letter into the paper.
That's true.
And
Takes
so
more
it
work.
does take a lot more force and work to do it. And you'd be surprised by how many people write on a typewriter for their first time and have no idea what they're doing. Because they
Yeah.
don't press the letters hard enough, it
Yeah.
doesn't show up. Moving this,
Yeah,
it's a
and
disaster.
there's what happens at the carriage return? Well, you have to
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
to
Gotta
do it yourself, right?
slide it over.
I think the coolest thing about the typewriter is the sound it makes too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that just
Yes.
incessant pecking sound
Yeah.
is so cool to sort of structure a video around.
And didn't you say that was one of the ways that people were attracted to
Yeah.
what Gabe was doing was through the
Well,
sound?
yeah,
Yeah.
the sound is
Which-
pretty
It's loud,
unique.
yeah.
And it would fill the entire subway station, just like echoing typewriter
Yeah.
keys.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to turn their head.
Yes.
And here Gabe is just typing, staring down at the ground. And he's watching all these people walk by.
Yeah, and the best part is,
Yeah.
And he
even
knows
if
that they're staring at him.
even if the people don't
Right,
approach me or
right.
people don't even buy poems, I know that every single person who walks by me, I've affected them in some way, purely
Right,
just by
right.
doing what I'm doing.
They'll probably go home that night and tell their spouse, "Oh, I saw this guy on the subway with a typewriter."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That always draws attention. But if you were a guy sitting there with your laptop, it wouldn't have
Exactly.
been anything
Nobody would care.
unusual. Nobody would care, right? No one would care. So the typewriter has that charisma. It
Yeah.
draws people
Right, and
to it.
also, there's a typed poem that is instantly ready to
Yeah,
show someone. If
that's
you're
right.
typing on a laptop, you'd have to bring
it's
a
Plug it
portable
into-
printer.
It's not
Printer.
tangible.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is just immediately physical, and
Yeah.
like the word is
Ink is
yeah,
bleeding through the paper.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Instead of
yes.
just the letters going into the cloud, and you can print as many copies as you want.
That's true. You're giving
Yeah.
them an original
You turn
work of
one
art.
piece of paper
Yeah.
into something worth something.
That's
Yeah.
true. Absolutely true. It's a much more physical experience, I think.
Yes.
Typing and receiving something typed.
Absolutely.
I think that's really true. So, Jake, can you tell us a little bit about your experience filming? Like, what kind of angles were you looking for when you were filming this typewriter experience in the Boston subway?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think the one angle that I used once in the video I definitely wanted to get was what we were just talking about. It was like sort of a perspective shot of Gabe looking down at these feet walking by.
Yes.
So
I love that shot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
I
a
got
good one.
my widest lens and just kind of put it where Gabe was and angled it downwards. And so you just see all these feet walking by with no heads, these decapitated bodies, and that's what Gabe's looking at.
That was his view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, I guess I sort of just wanted to capture the poetry of the act, you know? So the details of the light reflecting off the typewriter, the details of the ink on the page. There's a lot of close-up shots. And then one funny note actually is we went in a second day. He was going again. He was doing this like 4 to 5 days a week at that point.
Yeah, he was-
So it was,
yeah, he
it
was
was like,
there
I need
every
to go
day.
make money. So this is my job.
This is
You're
my
welcome to
job.
come with me.
Going to my job.
So the second day, I already got a lot of footage. I was like, I don't really need more of these close-up shots of a typewriter. Like, what could I do differently? And So I decided to try to get a time lapse, and I brought a tripod into the subway station to get this time lapse, and as soon as I set up the tripod, the subway police came by and was like, "What are you doing with that tripod, sir?" Actually, at one point, a train came by and it stopped early. Like normally it would stop maybe a few hundred feet beyond where it stopped, but it like was slowing down and stopping early. I was like, I wonder why this train's stopping. Is there something wrong? And the conductor pokes his head out of the window and is like, "Sir, you're gonna need to stop using that tripod immediately." And I was just like, whoa, because I had already like gotten like maybe 20 minutes of the time lapse, and I was like, if I could just get,
I know,
15, 20 more, it would be perfect.
Yeah.
But
they're interrupting my art.
yeah, so I was like looking at Gabe, I was like, do you think I should take it down? Should I just like pretend I'm slowly doing it and let them drive away?
Right.
And so I'm like really slowly doing it, and the guy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm getting there. And he's like, "All right, I'm just gonna keep driving." and then I still am like kind of not putting it away. And these like police officers start approaching us, and then I look at Gabe and I'm like, "All right, I'm putting this away." And so then what I did is I just put camera on the like sort of
It's like
wall.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
there's
like
a ledge over.
little ledge, yeah.
where he was
and
sitting.
so I just put
Yeah.
the camera on the ledge
Yeah.
and did the time lapse from there, and it worked perfectly.
See, you figured out how to make that work for
Yeah.
you. As aside from
Who
getting
knew that
escorted
tripods
out.
were hazardous?
Yes,
in subway
tripods are
stations?
hazardous. I guess somebody could trip over it or something.
That's the
I
idea.
mean, yes. I guess
I mean,
so.
I'm trying to figure out what would be dangerous about that, but there's so many things you could trip over at the subway.
True.
I mean, other people's legs and
Yeah.
briefcases and things. Oh, I'm glad that you were able to figure out a way to
Yeah.
finish it, because the time lapse is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
It's kind of like all of this speeded up
Yeah.
action,
Yeah.
people coming and going, and that whole feeling of the subway being a place that fills up and empties out quickly.
Exactly.
Like sort of like a pulsing thing.
Yeah.
It really adds a lot. So you guys both went to Pacific Collegiate School,
Yes.
but you met before then when you were in middle school.
Well,
Well,
actually, Pacific Collegiate School is 7 through 12.
Oh,
so-
it's 7 through 12.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
So we met.
you started there in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and collaborated on quite a few projects.
Yeah, we were both a big part of the theater program at our
Oh,
high
okay.
school. And we were part of a group of 18 students that went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. After our senior
fantastic.
year, our school
Yeah.
was nominated to perform at the Fringe Festival. So
Wonderful.
we were part of actually like 4 to 5 students that did the bulk of the writing
Yeah.
of the show.
Well,
that
we
performed.
we took a children's musical that was already written by a man named John Gravetz. He's a therapist in Santa Cruz. He's a really great guy. He had written this children's musical called Dr. Seuss, I Love You. And we really liked the idea of choosing a local original piece to bring to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So we read through it, and it was great, except it needed to be a little bit longer, needed to be flushed out, needed more characters. So we were a part of the team that,
like sort of
sort
added everything
of
onto
rewrote
the
it.
script.
But yeah, so we went
okay.
to
So you
Edinburgh and
get that
performed
too.
this, and that was an amazing experience, participating in like one of the biggest theater festivals in the
Yeah,
world.
I think the biggest
Yeah.
actually.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we mainly became friends through theater at Pacific Collegiate as well as basketball.
Also basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same basketball team.
Yes.
Oh, that's
So yeah, we've
great.
been collaborating on art for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your projects just get more and more interesting and more elaborate and more thought out, and you're so young. You have your whole lives ahead of you
True.
to do lots more
Yes,
stuff
indeed.
together. Now, I know you guys share a philosophy of art, that art should be part of public life, right? That it shouldn't be hidden away in books and libraries and kept away from the people who really need it the most.
Yeah.
Can you describe that a little bit? Talk about
Yeah,
how you
absolutely.
feel about that.
So, sort of my philosophy is that I believe that everybody who is creative or artistic in some way is more open and sort of experiences life more for the beauty and the experience rather than like getting things done, your success, money, any of that. Art sort of makes those things less important and also makes just life more beautiful. So
Right.
our concept of bringing art into public spaces is that, for instance, a subway station, that's a place where you wouldn't normally find art, right?
No, not
It's a
usually.
transit station. You're going
Right.
somewhere.
Right.
So bringing art into a space where it wouldn't normally be found and changing the environment, affecting the environment and the people in that environment purely by bringing our own creativity and beliefs, perhaps could change the minds or influence the minds of the people walking by and spark some artistic creativity within themselves. So, I mean, if there was art everywhere in the world, I believe the world would be a better place. So why not bring art everywhere in the world, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And if people see you doing it, they
Yeah.
might feel less self-conscious about
Exactly.
their own creative
Yeah.
endeavors, because we all have this terrible fear of not being perfect, you know. And I think what you guys are doing could help alleviate that,
'Cause
especially for younger people.
art
Yeah.
teaches the beauty of imperfections, you know?
Right, exactly. That's where the interesting stuff happens.
Right. I mean,
You know, and-
going out and typing poems totally unrehearsed. You don't know what he's typing.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of them probably don't turn out very well. And people read them and they're like, this is not that good of a poem, I bet.
But they got
happens.
something.
But they got a
wouldn't have-
physical poem,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is what it is, and
Yeah.
it kind of had that moment ingrained in it.
Yes, that's right. The physical, the typewriter, the piece of paper, the person who did it, that's all preserved in the poem itself, which is so wonderful, right? So spontaneous, and it'll never happen again. It's that one moment.
Exactly.
So I was with you guys on a recent afternoon in Santa Cruz where I got to be the eye, like what Jake does with the camera, and follow Gabe around with as he did his busking job.
Yeah.
And we've got some footage from that afternoon that we
Yeah.
can show. So let's take a look.
So this is Pacific Ave, obviously. That's my friend Kevin Devaney and the creator of the Art Bar, who taught me how to bust poems. So he basically makes his money doing this as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Quite successful.
So this is basically, we just take our typewriters into any place we find ourselves and just write poems for people all day.
Yeah, I saw some people who got your poems and they were reading them and they were all huddled together and they just had this big smile on their face and they were very happy. That was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And we shot a lot more footage, but I think that really kind of says what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So, Jake, can you talk about the challenges of filming him when he's doing stuff? I mean, there's
sure.
people
It's
walking
interesting
around
and sort of an ongoing challenge also with this next project that we're working on, and I'm sure we'll discuss.
Yeah, we'll talk about that soon.
But yeah, the way people interact with Gabe while they can see that someone is filming him, I think, is a lot different. For example, when we were in Boston, he made a lot less money when I was filming.
You were bad for business.
Yeah, I was bad for business, but I think people tend to be kind of scared of a camera, and it's an interesting
that's true.
challenge
That's
how
true.
to position myself in such a way that they just act naturally. And I think there's a few different approaches. I mean, one is kind of trying to hide and not be seen, and then come out at the right moment, which is, I guess, a little bit unethical, but
Whatever works. Right?
also, yeah, it's just kind of experimenting with having a camera down, not really pointed, not super invasive, and then kind of gradually bring it in as someone's interacting with him. But I think that's definitely one of the biggest challenges, and it's hard to say right now.
But that's
how
also
I'm gonna
sort of
approach it, but-
a part of the social experiment that we're exploring,
That's
you
right.
know?
Right,
We're,
not
we're
only-
seeing how art of all mediums affects public spaces.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're focusing on my journeys as a poetry busker, but also we're going to find people on the street busking music, performance,
Sure.
art, whatever.
Juggers,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
get them involved
magic
as well.
shows.
And
Yeah. And the
cameras
whole
exactly
time
the
I've
same thing.
Yeah.
Got a digital camera writing onto a SD card
Yeah.
and
No, I
recording
think,
information in some way.
Yeah.
So it's part of the whole act, I think.
There's
Yeah.
some trust involved with that, I think. Definitely some trust.
sure.
And I think cameras have become ubiquitous. Everybody takes pictures using their smartphones. You know, I'm sure we're all on somebody's photo that we don't know about many
True.
times.
That's
So,
true.
I don't want to forget about the art bar. Now,
Yes.
we mentioned Kevin Devaney and his amazing project to raise money through busking to create this space for poetry and performance art. And Gabe, you work at the art bar, so Why don't you give us a quick
Yeah, I'll
description of
quickly
what
talk about
goes
the
on
art bar.
there?
So the art bar and cafe is at the Tannery Arts Center in Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
It's off of River Street, right by Highway 9, and it started about 6-7 months ago. And before that, it was Rebecca's Bakery, which was just a little cafe.
Right.
But they took over. And before that, it started as just a weekly poetry open mic that we did in the courtyard of the Tannery Arts Center. That's where I first met Kevin, and that's when he was still selling poetry to raise money to do this. And finally, and he had been dreaming of this for years. He came to California with this dream of creating an art bar.
I know,
basically.
it's amazing.
And
He had
so
a vision.
he drove up and
That's
down
an
the coast
amazing
of
vision,
California,
yeah.
finding a place where he wanted to do this, and finally settled in Santa Cruz and worked for a long time. Him and Alyssa Young, who's also a local poet, they started the art bar through a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo thing. And so it became a real cafe last winter. And I got a job there at the beginning of June. And basically, it's a philanthropub.
The philanthropub, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
30% of all the proceeds made at the art bar go towards arts education for youth in the city.
Yeah.
They've already done a mural somewhere, I forget where, but there's constantly
There's all
the
kinds of
revenue
stuff
that we
going
make, 30% of it just goes straight into arts education. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like a cycle of sustaining education or art through art, you know?
Yeah.
Right. So everybody go to the art bar
Yes.
and
Delicious food, delicious
have some
drinks.
delicious food and enjoy the poetry
Yes.
there.
Great
Yeah.
local beer on tap.
Local beer on tap.
Also, they host all kinds of really cool
Yeah,
events.
there's
That's
events
right, they have
almost
other
every
events.
night.
Yeah.
Monday, 6
That's
p.m. is the
poetry event.
poetry open mic.
Yeah.
It's every week.
Yeah.
That's definitely our biggest event, and when the art bar is most art bar-ish.
Yeah, since I've been back in Santa Cruz, I've gone
Yeah,
every
Yeah,
week.
that's
It's
great.
just kind of a fun scene.
yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to go myself.
Definitely.
So, Gabe, you have a couple poems to read for us.
Yes, I would love to.
Yes. I think we have time for two.
Awesome. So first, I'll read the poem that is part of the inspiration for the short documentary I Write Because I Must.
Okay.
It's a poem I wrote in the Harvard Square Tea Stop, and I'm sort of speaking it over the video. So
Yeah.
I think I'm finally beginning to get the hang of it. Layer your whole body with warmth, as well as your temples. Close your eyes for discovery rather than escape. Plant a foundation for your roots to reach every corner of the world. Remember the way your chest would glow with glee, just at the thought of exploring an entirely new world. Go back to the days when reality can only be defined by the feet that are walking, the fingers that are beginning to smell of ink always now. My heels are not conditioned to hold this much weight. I've carried stars on these shoulders. Every drop of spit spewed with each word becomes a new galaxy. My bones are too fragile to test life. My hands are too rough to stop discovering. And I haven't pissed enough people off to claim I've accomplished anything. I do the best I can fathom, though sometimes I can't explain it. I live in all ways, and I breathe in infinite curiosity. I write because I must. I've been conditioned to experience more of myself than I'm comfortable with.
Thank you, Gabe. And you have another one from...
Yes.
your
So this is my second chapbook. It's called Build Your Own Oblivion. My first one was called Unfinished Thoughts. I published that when I was 17. This came out at the beginning of May. You can find them on sale at my website. So I'm going to read a piece called Float. I gaze upon the bright winter sky, gleaming its poetic brilliance across all walks of life. Clouds oozing a sunset from their billowing nebular bodies, a fire spreading through the horizon, burning stars like pine needles. I neglect memories worse than children, perhaps because I want my child's life to be just that much easier, because I know what it's like to lose solidarity, even as I lay in my loving sheets with the smell of smoke and typewriter dust following every thought that's forgotten. I've never seen clouds so defeated, black, and sliding out of the sky as if slipping in its own rain puddles. Or maybe it just can't resist the universe's intoxicating presence, like what it lacks for in gravitational pull it makes up for in sex appeal. If you say that infinite freedom isn't inviting, then clearly you've never been free. And for that 5-minute period when the sun finally fades past the last gasp of Earth, when the whole world is shrouded in a blue haze of indecisiveness, as if we all somehow slipped into a noir film, I want to float over every shadow in the world and cry comfort onto every cheek that needs it. You ask me why I know these things, and all I can answer you with is a poem, because I don't know how not to be me. The best I can do is try a little harder to discover what it's like to feel. Life is never completed. I may not know what it's like to die, but I do know that we still save a seat at Thanksgiving dinner for my grandfather, and that when you let yourself leave love instead of your legacy, you won't need to live forever. I've listened to too many unheard prayers to be saved, and I haven't been to church enough times to not give a damn. But when you finally figure out that you are what the world needs, then I'll finally take your hand and walk you anywhere but towards the light.
Thank you, Gabe. Those were lovely poems.
Thank
and
you
you're a
very
really good reader, good presence, good voice. We have a few minutes left to talk about your next project,
Oh,
which
cool.
is the documentary that you guys are
Yeah.
planning. So
Yes.
can you
So-
quickly describe the
Yeah.
point of
Yes.
it and then the trajectory,
Absolutely.
the
So
trip
we
you
were
guys are taking?
inspired by this short film we've discussed, I Write Because I Must, in the Boston subway station, and we sort of thought about ways we could expand the project. And we're both from Santa Cruz, both from California.
And we knew we wanted to work on some sort of big project this summer.
Yeah.
As we both were bored, we wanted to do some sort of project, and we thought it would be a good idea to
Sure,
just
yeah.
expand that documentary.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
So
sort of what
we
sparked it.
launched an Indiegogo campaign about a month ago.
Just
and
finished yesterday.
It just finished, unfortunately.
Yes.
But we've raised almost $2,000 to
Great.
fund
Congratulations.
our trip. So the idea is that we're going to just sort of take a long 2-week road trip around the state of California and basically do what we did in the Boston subway station all over California, and see how different places affect it, see how it affects the environment, and then also sort of try to interact with other public artists around the state. So
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a
basically, we're
great
just going to
idea.
take a big loop of California, and starting in the Bay Area, go over to Tahoe, down all the way to Tijuana, back up
Wow.
the coast.
which is California.
Yeah.
That's true. That is still part of California.
So yeah, it's going to be an adventure. I feel like the documentary itself will sort of be shaped after we have the footage, but it's sort of half a documentary, half a social experiment or like
Yeah.
Yeah.
movement type of thing. We're
Sure,
trying to
sure.
change the world with art. Is basically what we're trying to
So
do.
yeah, when we're
fantastic.
out and about, we're gonna have information about our project on the back of all the poems Gabe writes. So we're in the process of putting together a website for the project too that we're gonna update
Okay.
throughout.
Okay.
So whoever's in the passenger seat of the car will be in charge of updating the website.
That's fantastic. And the dates that you're starting, right? You're starting.
Yes, we're leaving actually the Art Bar
Leaving.
open mic after the open mic on the 21st
July
of July.
July 21st, right?
And leaving from there and returning to the same open mic exactly 2 weeks later.
On August
Okay.
4th.
August 4th.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll be
Now,
gone for 2
but
weeks.
I love this idea. I'm going to be watching you guys. I'm going to be definitely tracking wherever you are. Can you guys give a website yet where people can find out more about the project? Or?
Yes, well, right
Yeah.
now our Facebook page is
Okay.
facebook.com/writing a new world.
Writing a New
That is
World,
what we've been
okay.
calling the project. Also, we're putting together a website now. We will
Yeah, we
give you
don't
the
have the
domain
URL
name. Yes.
to
Okay.
that quite yet.
All right. Well, we'll have the URL,
Yes,
URL
exactly.
when this show goes on. Yeah.
But yeah, Facebook page is a great place to start. Also, you can get in contact with us. My email is poetgabekittle@gmail.com. Also,
Okay.
Yeah.
Jake's website, jakecushnir.com.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
go to
great.
my website or Gabe's website
Yes.
to find more information about this
Yes.
project as well.
All right. Fantastic. It's been wonderful to have
Yes.
you guys here.
Thank you so much for having
so
us.
much for
Yeah,
being on
thank
the
you.
show.
Yeah.
Gabe Kittle, Jake Cushnir, the best of luck on your big adventure.
Thank you.
Thank you so
it's
much.
lovely to have you on the show.
Cool.
Thank you. This month's poem is by Jennifer Swanton Brown, the Poet Laureate of Cupertino, and it's called Santa Clara Valley Ghazal, and it appears in Song of Los Gatos, Poems of the Gem City, which is the anthology of poetry about Los Gatos. Santa Clara Valley Gazelle. We lived in Campbell with machine shops and fields of yellow mustard. I went to school in Cupertino, adrift at De Anza with memories and the future. I worked in San Jose, in a hospital with terrible stories. Would the boy with the shattered leg dribble a basketball in his future? Friday nights we went crawling to the Cats for steak and beer. The smoky music in those low rooms sold the past and the future. That marriage didn't last. I got a new job, went back to school to write my name in forgotten futures. Cupertino filled up with sushi and paratas. Schools opened and closed. The library fountains renewed the future. The children played soccer in Campbell, water polo in San Jose. In Los Gatos, the words were recorded for the future. Stopped eating steak. Tried coffee and cake at the Great Bear. Found the Happy Dragon, where everyone looks backward from the future. Friends asked and listened, read and suggested cups of tea. The hills are brown, but a poem is a gesture to the future. And now it's time for announcements. I'm starting a new poetry reading series at the Los Gatos Library called The Poetry Kitchen. It will be on the third Sunday of every month from 2 to 3 p.m. upstairs near the west windows. We will have a featured reader and an open mic, as well as light refreshments. Our first featured reader is Jennifer Swanton Brown, the Poet Laureate of Cupertino. I'd like to remind everyone that there are many open mic venues for poets to attend and read at. One of the most popular and long-running is at the Willow Glen Library, the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m., which usually has a featured reader. You can also find out where the open mics are in the Bay Area by visiting the website www.bayareaopenmics.com. The anthology of poems about Los Gatos is now available. Song of Los Gatos contains poems written by Los Gatos residents and others about our wonderful town. Please send me an email at ericagoss@comcast.net if you would like to order a copy. The book is 140 pages long and sells for $15. You can purchase my new book, Vibrant Words, Ideas and Inspirations for Poets, from Amazon, and it is also available at Village House of Books in Los Gatos and Booksmart in Morgan Hill. You can still purchase a copy of my chapbook, Wild Place, from Finishing Line Press on Amazon at Village House of Books in Los Gatos and at Bookshop Santa Cruz. Send your poem to me at ericagoss@comcast.net, and I'll choose one to read on the air. The Poetry Podcast is available at the Poet Laureate blog, losgatospoetlaureate.wordpress.com. Word to Word is made possible by viewers like you, Rainbow Graphics and Video, and KCAT TV 15. Thank you for watching.